so the rule of this game, if you can call it, is the same. I'm going to first play his video, and then I'm going to set a timer. We're going to have 30 seconds. I'm going to then give my answer in 60 seconds, and now I will have a timer that I will upload. Yeah, that's going to be my rebuttal. And so I'll actually be working at a disadvantage because I will not be prepared. I will just do this on the fly with this, like, this is going to be my notes on this pencil. And, oh, actually, okay, there's some crayons here. Is there a pen? No, there's a whiteboard and markers. Okay, that's good. Okay, I can do that. So I will do that.
Some here on TikTok, such as this guy, do it quite a bit. But of course they have to incorporate a lot of dishonesty in order to find evidence that agrees with them.
Capitalists often say that public ownership results in inefficiency, but let's look into it. This overview of 87 studies looks at state-owned, mixed, and private sectors and finds that there is no model of ownership intrinsically more efficient under any definition of efficiency, but there are differences within certain contexts.
First thing to note here is it's a lot more complex than state-owned versus privately owned. There's many private businesses that are state-backed monopolies, and these will be almost as inefficient as state-owned monopolies. Sometimes they might even be worse. So we are not advocating for simple privatization, we are advocating for a free market in which property rights are protected. ERCOT in Texas is a great example of a state-backed private monopoly, as well as railways in England. In fact, his study specifically says that things like regulations and enforcement of property rights affect efficiency. And in the privatization of state-owned enterprises, privatization is generally associated with more efficiency. So this study proves our point, not his.
When business is bad, cooperatives first draw from their profits before firing workers or cutting pay.
I guess you missed the part here where it says anecdotal.
And this study finds that worker co-ops are as much as 14% more efficient than conventional firms.
This study he cited has a sample size of 7. It also only looks at one industry. According to a much larger analysis of worker cooperatives, published in the National Bureau of Economic Education, with a sample size of over 200 and a control sample of over 1,800. Co-ops invest less in long-term assets, take fewer risks, grow more slowly, create fewer jobs, and exhibit lower labor and total factor productivity. In this cross-industry analysis from Portugal, they found no evidence that co-ops were more productive than capitalist firms. Now going back to the other paper, it was completely predictable that co-ops would invest in less long-term assets, grow slower, and create less jobs. One of the main reasons would be time preference. Entrepreneurs generally have lower time preference, which leads to more investing, and more risk, which leads to greater payoffs. This allows firms to actually expand and create new jobs, something that co-ops are terrible at. This is one of the reasons unemployment increased so drastically in Yugoslavia after they switched to a worker co-op model. Many of their citizens got jobs in other countries. You can't just kill entrepreneurship and expect things to be okay. Co-ops are also generally worse for wages, in some cases having 14% lower wages than capitalist firms. This study, looking at 5 worker cooperatives in the United States, found that the salary levels were well below that of capitalist firms. In one of the cases, wages were so low that some of the members had to leave the firm. And this larger view of over 95 worker cooperatives showed again wages were well below the rates of capitalist firms. So the evidence is consistent across sample sizes. So yes, looking at the overall data instead of cherry picking definitely shows that worker cooperatives are not the type of things we want, especially on a large scale.
Co-ops are capitalist firms. This just means you don't know what capitalism is, and that under the system of capitalism, if you have a co-op, it's a capitalist firm, and you can. Proof is that Mussolini loved co-ops, and so did Franco. In fact, Mondragon, the co-op that was started that Western anarchists love to fetishize, was started by Franco. As for advocating for the free market, there's no such thing as free market. It is created by Westerners, and they don't mean free market. They mean the right to flood their goods into third world countries. As for property rights, there's no such thing as property rights in nature. What you need is a government that says, I will use my police power to exclude anyone from this rent. So property rights does not exist in nature. This is dumb.